Okay, so I'm happy to be here with you this morning to share some very, very important information. And I'm hoping that everybody has a pencil, a piece of paper to write down notes and questions for the end. There's a lot of information to share. I would like to stop and answer questions, but to get through everything, I think the best would be for the questions to come at the end. So with that, we will get started. I just want to check and make sure, can everyone hear me? And are we on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. So the topic and what I'd like to talk about is what should I do when my loved one can no longer make his or her decisions? Decision making is very, very important because some people feel, am I making the right decision, the wrong decision? What decisions do I have to make? So we're going to take an adventure on all the different areas that you may need to make decisions about.
Next slide. That's the sharing. Right, let's see.
Okay. Decisions. Decisions is a noun, a conclusion or resolution reached after a consideration. The action or process of deciding something or of resolving a question. A formal judgment. The ability or tendency to make decisions quickly. A win assigned to the person or persons responsible. So the first thing about decisions, we're going to talk about, or I'm going to give you information about the family meeting. The family meeting is very important, especially if there's siblings involved in taking care of a loved one, a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, a grandmother, or grandfather. The reason why you want to have a family meeting is to take a lot of the emotion out of one particular person having to make all the decisions. So what? The family meeting is designed to delegate responsibility equally to take the stress off one family member. Several times I've talked to families and there's 4 and 5 siblings, but only one person is taking care of all the issues dealing with mom and dad. This way is kind of shared. At the family meeting, each person will give reports and updates on their area. So you would kind of divide out the care needs of the loved one. Who? Everyone who is in the loved one's immediate family. It could be their spouse, their children, and siblings. Why do this? It takes the pressure off of one family member, takes the emotional stress off of that family member. Because if it's all on one person and they tend to feel, am I making the right decision? How will everybody judge me? And when you're in that space, many people, or even brothers or sisters, they'll complain, but they don't have answers to the solution. As soon as it's noticed that serious mental changes are starting to happen. Family meetings can take place where everyone can agree on, such as homes or even a restaurant, as often as needed. But you don't want to have the family meeting in front of the person that you're meeting about. First step, getting a formal diagnosis. A lot of times you now find that mom keeps repeating herself, or grandpa is being very confused on different issues that's happening on a day-to-day basis. It can be really worrying when someone you know is going through a difficult time. It is very important to take your loved one to first see their primary physician, giving them very detailed information about current behaviors, such as problems with thinking or memory issues they are exhibiting. So a correct referral can be made. Care. Being the person in charge, the decision maker, you will need to assist with or take charge of your loved one's legal authority, finances, medical care, living accommodations, and caregiving needs. These things can also be set up in your family meeting, that if there are several people or brothers or sisters or siblings, aunts and uncles, they can take part in one of these areas if it's an area that they have a lot of knowledge. It would help out a lot. We'll talk about each one of these. Legal authority, permission, a right coupled with the power to do an act or order others to act. Finances. It is important to understand that you could be responsible for the management of large amounts of money, especially government funds, pensions, etc. With this comes accountability to legal entities and family. This is why in a family meeting, if one of the siblings is taking care of the loved one's finances, in the meeting, whether it's monthly, they would give an accounting of what they've spent money on, spend it on a caregiver, spend it on medicine, spend it on, Ubers. That way at the end, and they say, well, what's happening with mom and dad's money? Or what's happening with, with our sister's money? Each month when you have your meeting, this accountability would come out, which takes the pressure off of the person handling it. Living accommodations. When you're making the decision about where your loved one will live, there are things to be aware of. Places that they may live, is it home? Independent living or room and boards? Assisted living? Skilled nursing long-term care. We're going to talk about each one of these. Living at home. Living at home is always the #1 choice, if this is possible. The following needs to be in place, though. Safety apparatus and safety items are put in place, especially if they are a fall risk. Handrails. Many times I go into homes and handrails are needed, not only in the bathroom and the shower, but down the halls, the stairs leading out in the front and backyard, sometimes even in the bedroom, by the bed. Ramps. You can have ramps built. You can buy portable ramps. You can lease portable ramps. If your loved one has been in the military, VA will come and build ramps. You'll need to remove all of the loose rugs. A lot of homes I go into, they're beautiful rugs on the floor, but they're fall risk. Many seniors are on walkers and their walker can get caught and then they topple over. Egress alarms. These are alarms that go on doors and windows in case your loved one might be trying to go out and you're not aware of it, it makes an alarm. You can get them at Home Depot. They're very, very inexpensive, like $10, $11, but they make a nice sound that if you're at one part of the house and your loved one is at the other and they're trying to get out and you don't know it, you'll hear the alarm. Perimeter fencing for people that have dementia or Alzheimer's and they're ambulatory. I've had clients leave out of their house and found in another part of the city. I had one client that I'll share with you. She lived in our house for 30 years. We had a caregiver there for part of the day till 2 o'clock. Her son would come home at 4. And his attitude was, no, mom's not going to go anywhere. She's been here 30 years. Just when the caregiver leaves, sit her in front of Steve Harvey, give her some water, her phone, and she'll be fine until I get there. I went over and I saw that she can go right out of her kitchen door, right down the driveway, and she's free to the world. And I told him, I said, you really need to put a perimeter fencing here so she cannot get out. He argued with me, no, no, no. Then one day he called me, Susan, do you know if my mom is with the caregiver? I'm like, no, because remember, she sent you a text asking if she can leave and you gave her permission. Well, she's gone. Long story short, they found her in Downey. She lived right across the street from Ladera Park. How did she get to Downey? She took the bus. Even though she had Alzheimer's dementia, she still knew how that this is a bus and she knew that how to take it. Why did they find her in Downey? That's where she lived before she lived where she left. So even though they've been at a location, maybe you're feeling that they're okay, but with dementia and Alzheimer's, they can wake up from a nap and not recognize where they are. It could be their own home. I've had other clients where same thing, they've woke up from a nap and they're telling their wife, I'm ready to go home. And they're saying, honey, you are home. No, we're not. Take me home. And then she had to redirect him and start showing him pictures and his clothes. And then he finally snapped out of it. So you have to be very, very careful if a loved one has dementia, Alzheimer's, they are ambulatory, and they could walk away. They could wander. Don't think that they won't because you think they might be scared or this is their home. Believe me, when you read about many of these people that wander off, this is the reason why. They don't think they are at home. Stair chair for a 2-story home. A lot of times families will try to keep their loved ones downstairs. Well, you know, their bedroom is upstairs for 25 years. And now you want to try to put them downstairs. If they're ambulatory, they may try to climb those stairs. So you might want to look into putting in a stair chair. They're really, really neat. They fold up against the wall. That way the client can go up and down the stairs. Last in this area is cameras. Cameras is a big, big help now, and especially with the technology, you can talk on the cameras, you can download the apps on your phones. I had a client that needed a caregiver. She lived in San Francisco. Her mother refused to go to San Francisco, and there's no family there. She's 92, but she was ambulatory. So they couldn't afford a caregiver 24 hours. So what we did, we set up a split day with cameras in between. So in the morning, the caregiver would come in, take care of the mom, do everything she needed to do until 1 o'clock. Then she left. The cameras were put on and the daughter could watch her mom from San Francisco on her phone and could talk to her, which made a big difference in regards to wondering if mom is okay when they're by themselves. Caregiver would come back in the evening, get her ready for bed, dinner, all of that, would leave, and then the daughter would put the mom back on cameras so she could watch her throughout the night. Home sweet home. Independent living facilities, room and board. Independent living facilities are suggested for seniors that can do all of their activities of daily living, but no memory challenges, but maybe a fall risk, have a desire to be with other seniors to socialize. Now, the reason why I said that they can't, even though they can do all of their activities of daily living, so why can't they be in an independent facility? Because they may not remember. Had a client that was at an independent assisted living, and she didn't remember to come down for breakfast. She would come down at 1 or 2 o'clock thinking it's time for breakfast. So that's why independent living needs to be for seniors that have no memory challenges. Assisted living, board and care, and RCFE. Assisted living facilities are suggested for seniors that can't manage at least 2 of one's physical needs, such as personal hygiene, grooming, dressing, toileting, transferring or ambulating, and eating. Assisted living facilities are also suggested for seniors who have MCI, mild cognitive impairments, dementia, and Alzheimer's. Long-term skilled nursing, convalescent home, rest home, many, many different names for that convalescent home. A skilled nursing facilities are often recommended if a senior needs is total care. That means that they can't do anything. Or a placement by a conservator, the state, and government entity. Because there is no family or family can't take any financial responsibility. A lot of times they'll end up in convalescent homes. And that would be the bottom choice, if at all possible, is to put a loved one in a convalescent home. Medical care. Medical care is the maintenance or improvement of health via the prevention, diagnosis, and the treatment of the disease, illness, injury, or other physical and mental impairments. We're going to talk about 2 types of care. One is palliative care versus hospice care. Many of you, I'm sure you've heard of hospice. Historically, hospice has been where someone has a short life expectancy, 3 to 6 months. Some people have heard of palliative care. Some people thought that palliative care was hospice care, but it is a difference. And I wanted to talk about palliative care versus hospice care so that you'll have a clear understanding and how to ask for either when you're dealing with your medical team for your loved one. Palliative care focusing on providing quality of life through comfort care in your home or choice of facility. What is palliative care? Living well with a serious illness. Palliative care is specialized medical care for people with serious illness. This type of care is focused on providing relief from the symptoms and stress of a serious illness. The goal is to improve quality of life for both the patient and the family. Just what are some serious illnesses that will qualify a person for palliative care? Improving quality of life by treating people suffering from the symptoms and stress of serious illnesses, such as cancer, congestive heart failure, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, kidney disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, and others. Palliative care can offer many great support services for free. Doctor services, where the doctor will come to the home or any boarding care that they're living at. Skilled nursing care, medical equipment, like wheelchairs or walkers, hospital beds. Semi-electric is usually what's used. Medical supplies, like incontinence supplies, bandages, catheters, all of this for free. Prescription drugs for symptom control or pain relief. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech, language pathology services, and any other Medicare covered service needed to manage pain and other symptoms related to the illness. Palliative care versus hospice care, similar but different. Palliative care focuses on relief from physical suffering. The person may be being treated for a disease or may be living with a chronic disease and may or may not be terminally ill. Hospice care, terminally ill with a short life expectancy, does not use life-prolonging treatments and medications. An example of that would be somebody with cancer that's taking chemotherapy and it's just draining them. And they're like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to have chemotherapy anymore. They go from chemotherapy to maybe a pill. And that is accepted in palliative care. As long as it isn't a treatment to continue to try to make them better. If it's come to the point that they've done all that they can do, then palliative care would be probably the first step before hospice care. Combined care. Many organizations work together to offer the patient a seamless continuum of care over the course of the serious illness. Hospice companies are the largest providers of palliative care services. So, to make that clear, your big giants, your Kaisers, your UCLAs, your Cedars, they have palliative care and hospice care separate. They're not combined. There's a palliative team, and then there's a hospice team. If you come away from the big giants and you go with private hospice companies like Ann Hospice, God and Hope, they don't separate the two. You have hospice as the umbrella. Under the umbrella is palliative care. And they will get all of the services that someone would get under hospice in the private sector. If you are in palliative care with Kaiser or any of the bigger giants, you're not going to get the services that hospice clients get unless they are in hospice. And I can clarify that a little later if you have any questions about it. Who is eligible for palliative care services? Patients diagnosed with life-limiting illness, Medicare Part A recipient, PPOs, HMOs, and more. Patients who no longer choose to undergo aggressive treatment. Patients who have made the choice to focus on their quality of life. Now let's talk a little bit about caregivers. Caregivers, why should I hire one? There are many reasons why loved ones or the person who makes decisions for them look to hire a caregiver. The loved one does not have any family member. The loved one has a family member nearby, but that family member does not have the time to commit to caregiving. The loved one has a family member nearby, but that family member doesn't have the necessary skills, training, or emotional capability. The loved one may have a family member nearby that meets many of his or her needs, but the elderly person prefers to also have a companion. For an additional interpersonal connection, this is particularly true for the homebound loved one who may feel like they don't see many people anymore. That causes a lot of them to go into depression. The loved one may ask for a companion to be a set of eyes for them because they need a friend outside of relatives. The primary caregiver may need respite, a temporary break to regroup from the stressful work of caregiving for the one you love. Private caregiver versus an agency caregiver. Very, very important. Let's talk about private. When I say private, is like a referral. My next door neighbor loved their caregiver and they've referred them to me. Not good. Family is responsible for the safety of the caregiver. California has some of the strongest labor laws in the country. If a caregiver gets hurt, it can open up a workers' comp claim that you would be responsible for. In and around the home, if they got hurt, you would be responsible, and you know how much it is to go to the emergency room. They go to the emergency room and they ask them, how did you do this? Did you do it at work? They go, yeah, I hurt myself at work. Stamped, workers' comp, and you will be getting a phone call. Driving on an errand. Many people have a caregiver and they run to go do an errand. They run to the grocery store. They run to go pick up a prescription in their own car. But if they have an accident, you're liable because they were working for you. Even if they have their own car insurance, it's not a commercial policy. A lot of people don't know that. They allow caregivers to take their loved ones to the doctor in the caregiver's car or to the store. You are liable if they have an accident with or without the client in the car. So that's private. The other, let's go. Private caregiver versus agency caregiver. Agency caregiver, the liability of all the liability is on the agency, not your family or loved one. Substitutes, when a caregiver calls off. Often you'll have a private caregiver and they may call off and then you become the caregiver and you had tickets to go to a play. Vetted by the agency, caregivers with legitimate agencies, they have vetted all of their caregivers, meaning they have had criminal background check, life scans, TB tests, etc. You as a client, any agency should be able to give you a copy of their liability, a copy of the information in regards to the caregiver that you chose. So when your loved one can no longer make decisions, you now can navigate the new responsibility effectively and respectfully. Getting started. If you'd like for me to contact you and make an appointment to talk to you or your family members, please email me at laderasunrise@gmail.com. And let me give you my phone number. It's not on here. It's 310-597-3049. And that concludes the presentation on what do I do when my loved one can no longer make their own decisions. Okay. Am I on mute? Hello, everyone. All right. Any questions? None?
Hi, Susan. I was
Okay.
wondering if you could please put the slide regarding the finances back up.
Okay. Hold on. There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Oh, you want to take a picture of that one?
I got it. Thank you.
Uh-huh. The other questions, come on, you guys have to have some questions.
Sharon, Susan, we actually met a few years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I was caretaking with respect to my cousin who needed diapers, and you and Kevin supplied me with diapers.
Okay.
So nice to see you again.
And good to see everyone. So I hope the information was helpful, and I know it's a lot. Maybe some things you're like, oh, wow, yeah, I have a caregiver, or, I need to make sure that I'm covering a lot of these things. One thing that I do want to say that I did leave out, which was important for anybody, that if you do have a caregiver in your home and you own your home, you need to make sure that your homeowner's insurance knows that you have a caregiver in the house, because your homeowner's insurance covers visitors, not employees. But if you let your homeowner's insurance know that, well, my mom or my husband or whatnot, we have a caregiver in the house, it's usually covered. And if not, you can get a waiver. Because if a caregiver gets hurt and they're working, your homeowners is not going to cover it. Okay.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So the palliative care,
Mhm.
you said that if it's under Kaiser, can we get a caregiver?
No, the big giants, this is what happens with the big giants. They separate the two. Kaiser, UCLA, Cedars, they have a palliative team and they have a hospice team. Palliative, to them, you can just call in for help. Very, very little support. Better than no support, unless they are very, very close to being in hospice. If you use one of the private sectors like Ann Hospice or Faith in God, they don't redline. They will give you all the support like they are hospice, but treat them as palliative care. And in regards to, even at the private sector, we're saying in regards to caregivers, only if it's a respite, and they will send a nurse weekly and bathing nurses out on palliative care.
Oh, they will. Okay.
Yes. Not the big giants, but the private ones will. Unless they're very close to hospice and they can't do it, they may, if the doctor writes the order.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Susan. I had a little technical difficulty, so I dropped for a few minutes, but it looks like you didn't. Thank God.
Okay.
So thank you for that presentation. This is exactly what we plan to do, is open it up for Q&A. It seems that that's already started. Does anyone else have questions for Susan?
Can you tell us a little bit about your facility?
Okay, I own a residential care home, an RCFE, 6-bed facility in the community of Ladera Heights. I also see, is James still on screen? I don't know if he's still here. James, he also has a assisted living in Lower Ladera. There are 6-bed facilities and 24-hour care.
I have a question. With
Yes.
respect to rental rates or bed rates, I guess would be the term. How is that structured? Are any of these types of facilities subsidized? Can seniors take advantage of some type of opportunity that way to offset some of the costs associated with?
Yes.
Care?
Okay. Is it easy? Not really. You think of Section 8, you know, everyone's heard of Section 8. It's a process. You have to qualify. For board and cares and assisted living is the same thing. It's called a waiver program. If they can qualify for the waiver program, they can get a subsidy for board and care. That's the only way. So you can go through Department of Social Services to apply, but you have to be very, very between Medi-Cal and Medicaid to usually qualify for that subsidy, but it's called the waiver program.
Waiver.
It's like
WAVER.
Mhm.
Now, is that list such like Section 8? In some cases, Section 8 could be 3 years long for people in some cases. Are we in that kind of category with this vehicle?
Yes, you are. And not only that, it's like with, say, Section 8. You may have an apartment building, a 200 unit apartment building, and the owner is only willing to maybe do 3 units, Section 8. Same thing with the residential care home. It's a 6-bed facility. They may only be willing to have 1 client or 2 clients on a waiver program. It does not pay the going rate for that room. And they will only let the family subsidize so much. Sometimes, like I have a client that is on the waiver program, they're able to pay $1,500 is what the waiver pays them. The family is willing to pay the other $2,500, but they can't. They give a cap on what the family can add to that. Very strict rules.